All right, everyone. We are here at the Knights Roundtable today with Nash McComsey. I'm Nash McComsey. I'm here with Olivia Gregory.
Hi, Nash.
And from what I understand, this is your first podcast. It's mine as well.
Yes, it is.
So
Yep.
a little nervous, but we're going to get this discussion
I think
going.
we'll get it going.
So with our first topic today, we will be discussing online education, remote education, and how we're sort of dealing with it. And we're all kind of, you and me, we're just students here.
Yep.
Dealing with it just like everybody else is.
Exactly.
So we're going to sort of bring our thoughts together on this. And the first thing I want to do, I want to make a distinction here because a lot of folks really are unfamiliar with the terminology regarding these online classes. The first thing that I want to make sure that everyone's aware of is the difference between online and remote learning. When it comes to online learning, we're talking about classes that we're going to be online regardless of the current situation that we now find ourselves in. So, but remote learning is for courses that are, on campus, that would have been on campus, but we're going to be talking, over Zoom. We're going to be discussing all of that stuff here. And the first thing I would like to talk about generally just the benefits of
definitely the benefits.
Because we're kind of forced in the situation. It's going to be important for us to sort of look at the lighter side of things, as it were.
Yes.
One of the great benefits, obviously, we are kind of stuck in this situation right now, so we just kind of got to make the best of it. Of course, we're not completely ready to go back on campus in full. At least not all universities.
Soon, though.
Soon.
Couple weeks.
Yes. We're going to be able to get back on campus here at Central Penn. And as for it's just an effective method. What do you think generally about the benefits? What are the first things that come to your mind when it comes to benefits, Olivia?
The first thing that comes to my mind is that this is just a great way to help stop the spread of the coronavirus, because obviously we need to take in measures of social distancing, staying apart from each other, and with being back in the classroom, it's pretty hard to not be near each other. So I'm just glad that once we do come back, we'll be wearing masks. We'll be staying as far away from each other as possible. There's hand sanitizer all over the buildings. Like, once I got into campus, I noticed that there were stations of hand sanitizer everywhere. There's signs that say masks are required in the buildings. So it's nice and comforting to know that there are still being measures taken to ensure our safety and health.
Right. And, of course, there are people who are adversely affected. There are some people who aren't as much, but I think you could speak for the people who are more adversely affected by this sort of...
Yeah, exactly. So I'm about 2 months pregnant, and for me, it was great to be able to have a start at home, knowing that I wasn't going to be exposed to any risks, because being a pregnant woman, there are more risks of being put on a ventilator and just having a higher chance of having more complications with breathing issues and stuff like that.
Certainly. So with that in mind, you have to look at the feasibility of being able to do something like this. And the fact of the matter is the technology is there. It's all there. We, as students and as teachers, we just have to be able to adapt to it. And, some of us have done well, others not so much. I feel here at Central Penn, certainly we've done a fantastic job.
Yes, me too.
And definitely you could see that some students and teachers are taking to it better than others just on an individual level. So just from my personal experience, I have had just a pretty decent time with these remote classes. I was definitely a little worried going into them.
Me too.
I'm sure you could definitely relate.
Me too.
I remember talking to my professor at the beginning of this semester and, or it was the beginning of the previous semester, being like, hey, no online classes, we can help it. And then everything happens. So
I know, I always tried to avoid doing online classes because I just personally like the experience of being on campus for classes. But I do think that it has given me a chance to think harder and become smarter, because I'm stepping out of my comfort zone and I'm just learning in a way that I never really wanted to learn before.
There's definitely something to be said about the adaptability of certain students. Yeah, so it's been a change. It's been a transition. But the good news is, we're there, technologically speaking. We can do it.
Yes, we're lucky for that, because years ago, this wouldn't have been able to be possible. Everything would have just came to an end pretty much, and we would have just had to wait for it to be able to come back on campus.
Right. And I think another good thing with that is just generally speaking, teachers have taken to it well. The teachers that have taken to it well have really brought the students up in many ways when it comes to being able to adapt to this change.
Yes.
I think something else here that it's important is that this does genuinely give people more time with their families. They're spending more time, just kind of at home, and it is nice. There's definitely some downsides. I'm sure that there are some people listening right now that may disagree with that statement I just made, but it's true. We've gotten a lot closer, at least certainly at my house.
Yeah, no, me too. It's given me a chance to spend more time with my little brother since he's also not in school. Well, he is now, but before when he wasn't, we got more time to bond. I was able to help him learn in different ways that he wasn't learning in the classroom, so that was really nice.
Yeah, I mean, well, you may not get the hands-on experience with the professor, but you still have, a lot of people still have, supportive groups at home that they're able to get a lot of help from. So how is that going with him, by the way? Has he?
So once he went back to school, they're doing half online and then half off, which is at home, obviously. So Monday and Tuesday, he's in the classroom. They split his class in half, so 12 students are in the classroom on Monday and Tuesdays, and then 9 are in on Wednesdays and Thursdays. They have these shields put up around all the desks. All kids have to wear a mask. They do take mask breaks just to give the kids a breather, be able to get a snack and drink water. But during those breaks, they are staying completely apart. So it's good to know that even like K through 12 schooling is still taking the measures that the college campuses are taking too.
Certainly, yeah. It's certainly very comforting to be able to see everyone taking this as seriously. Our education is one part. I mean, the most important thing for instructors, especially looking over kids, is safety of students. It always has been, as well it should be. And during these trying times, that's when you want to be able to know that support system is there.
Yeah, and also another benefit, I think, is the fact that, like, obviously our parents are going to be past their 40s at this point, so it makes them, like, at a higher risk than us. So say we pick up the germs somewhere on campus and bring it home, just because our immune systems might be better and easier to fight off COVID, our parents, grandparents, aunt, uncle, whoever lives with us that may be more at risk is going to have a harder time getting over COVID. Right. So it was nice to be able to keep my mom safe, just everybody that I'm around that is older.
I would certainly feel a lot more nervous having to go to campus. So online and remote learning has been an absolute necessity. And for the most part, it's been handled very well. We're going to get into a little bit later about the certain aspects that haven't been. Yeah. But I would say many things you could look at are just generally an improvement over on-campus classes. I mean, first of all, you are able to work a lot better with a schedule, just generally speaking. There's me and you were both commuter students. Yeah. So we no longer have that commute, which is
it's nice. I've saved so much gas. I've been able to work more hours at work. I don't have to be like, this is when I'm getting home from school. Right. So I've been able to work like 8-9 hour days, and it's been really nice because once we do come back on campus, I'm only going to be able to work about like 3 to 7:30 because I do work at the mall, so even they are still closing early and taking just to clean the mall and make sure that they're following all these precautions to keep everyone safe that's coming to the mall. So yeah, the work hours has been nice. I've been able to make more money to save up for school. So that's right. Yeah, that's awesome.
So we also wanted to discuss a little bit about sort of the general consensus on online classes. What have you seen? Have people been speaking positively about online classes in your social groups generally, or not so much?
So I do have a few friends that are in college, and they also love the online classes just because my one friend has asthma very badly, so she has just been so anxious and scared about all of this, and it was so relieving for her to be able to stay at home. And she has a little trouble with the online classes, teaching herself self-discipline, but she's also
that a little bit later as well.
Yes, definitely. The self-discipline we'll get into later too. But yeah, my friends have loved it. It also have spent more time with their families, got more hours at work. But I feel like everyone wants to come back to school. We're just still a little scared about it.
Yeah, we certainly won't be able to wash that fear away, but we are going to go on a quick break. We will be right back again. This is the Knights Roundtable with Nash, McComsey, and Olivia Gregory. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. This is the Knights Roundtable with Olivia Gregory and Nash McComsey.
Hello.
So we are going to get back into the second segment talking about the student drawbacks and the professor drawbacks. This is a big topic that we wanted to discuss just because there are so many drawbacks of not being able to have the full learning experience that we are so used to having. So I wanted to start off with the fact that students still have to pay full price for the online schooling when pretty much it's just like a glorified like Skype call pretty much. For us personally, we use Blackboard, which is really nice. I've found Blackboard Collaborate to be way better than things like Skype. I'm not really a big fan of Zoom, so I do like the fact that all of my classes have been using Blackboard Collaborate to have their class meeting times.
We should mention as well that this is not across all schools. Some schools have been very forthcoming with aid, helping out with students in this case, but that's not the case in a lot of schools. You have, I believe you found an article that talks about a specific case.
Yeah, so an article from the New York Times talks about how students and parents of the students have been so frustrated with the fact that they have to still pay the full price of their kids' schooling, even though it's online and they aren't having access to things like the food, the cafeteria, being able to go into professors' office times and actually meet one-on-one in person with them. So I even know that there are parents in certain schools and universities that are trying to sue the universities to get back a certain percentage of the money because they're just honestly not satisfied and they don't think that it is fair for their student and the parents to have to pay that full price, which I do agree on. It is because some schools are like $30,000 just for 2 semesters. It's crazy.
Well, you have to look at it this way. When you pay for tuition in any college, you're paying for more than just the class.
Exactly.
You're also paying for other student services. You're paying for counseling. At least here at Central Penn, we provided that. While those services are still intact, certainly at some schools, and, of course, in our school as well, those services are intact. That's not the case across the board. And yet, a lot of schools are still expecting that full tuition, and they're not going to be giving any sort of reimbursement. So it's really a tough situation for parents. I mean, some of these students were using their school's outlet to, not just create social networks, not just to get educated, but to genuinely just, feel better about their day. The counseling services, it was a huge thing that we ended up, not losing here at this school, but at other places, you lose that face-to-face interaction. So definitely, I would say that there is a case for all students to receive some kind of kickback from the universities.
And I wanted to add how students aren't even allowed to, the ones that live on campus, they're missing out living with some of these people that they've created bonds with. I'm sure that they miss them so much. Now, being a commuter, I haven't really experienced that as much, but I know for some people, they love being on campus. They love living with their friends. It's just a full experience for them, and they're missing out on it.
We could speak ad nauseum about how many different things students have lost. But the fact of the matter is they've lost something.
Yeah.
And they're not going to end up seeing it come back.
No.
So we want to really make sure that students are getting the value that they're paying for from these classes. Also, in addition, I mean, if you look at how many different students you have, each one of us is getting affected by this, but some students are affected worse than others. Some people can only learn in a classroom setting. They're really much better being able to ask the teacher questions while they're in class.
Yeah, some people have learning disabilities.
Yes. And those people are already, marginalized as is, and it's becoming more excruciating in this specific time that we're in. You have to, a college wants to treat all of their students at least equally in most capacities. They want to make sure that they're being tended to, but they're just not able to do that right now. And we're not seeing, from some schools anyway, we're not seeing any sort of movement on their part to be able to change it. Also, something I wanted to discuss, and this is something that I've seen only recently, is a security risk when it comes to these classes, specifically the remote classes, but also the online classes. With everything that's going to be moving online generally, there comes a risk where you're going to end up opening yourself up, not just to like these giant hackers. I mean, if you look at, we just had an article come out on, it was the 2nd of September here, where Miami-Dade, the school district, was disrupted by a full cyber attack. So that's, that we're talking about a not necessarily a business, but a group of individuals that are seeking to, seize student information. What they did essentially for this one was they DDoSed their schools. And if you don't know what a DDoS attack is, it basically means you're going to be overwhelming a server with data. So it's a constant input of data to the point where the servers can no longer handle it. They crash. Aside from seizing information, they just want to mess with classes. And that's sort of the other point I wanted to get to. It's not just these big corporations. It's individuals. I'm talking like YouTubers, just kids.
Yeah.
They're able to get into these classes. I mean, if you look at a school here's the best thing I can say. School passwords sometimes are just 1, 2, 3, 4. If you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's very easy to just get into some of these Zoom classes. You could look right now on YouTube and search for videos of people getting into these online classes and just doing whatever they want. It's becoming a real issue.
Yeah,
and
it's scary because they honestly could get access to sharing anything pretty much.
Right.
Like, I've seen instances where people have been hacking into the specific, there was a 3rd grade class where a man hacked into their Zoom call for their class, and he was showing inappropriate things to these little kids, and it's honestly terrifying to be a parent and not being 100% sure that there's not going to be anything that you don't want your child being exposed to.
It's a big unknown, and
yes.
There are certainly unsavory individuals that will take advantage of that big unknown. So with that in mind, there's a huge security risk. We're looking at schools that aren't really taking as much time to tend to specific students. Not to mention, I mean, you mentioned earlier, we do lose that one on-one interaction with teachers.
Definitely, which is like a big part of learning for me, because sometimes there are questions that I just want to be able to be in person and ask, because I've always just had a better learning experience in person.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot easier for professors, too. Something else we want to get into. It's a lot easier for professors to be able to have that one-on-one experience as well. Now, some professors, more experienced in doing online classes, they're, used to sending out emails pretty frequently. Some of them are not. But most of them, for the most part, are. And with this remote transition, we're seeing, who was prepared for it and who wasn't. The students can feel that. The students will notice that. Definitely what we're seeing is an increase, I would say, in the professors who weren't as technologically inclined before struggling a lot right now, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add, for example, teachers and students, there are some that are less fortunate than others that don't have access to things like a microphone, a camera, even a laptop. And for some, I know that my friend, for her school, if they don't have their camera on, they get 0 attendance points, which is hard for her because she doesn't have a camera. So she's had to forfeit all of her attendance points. And luckily, they don't have... It's not like our school where if you don't show up 14 days in a row, I think it is, you get completely booted out of the class. So luckily she just had to forfeit points.
Right, and it's difficult in those situations because, should the school be expected to provide that sort of thing? Should they be expected to put that forward? Maybe, it's a tough question to answer. But the fact of the matter is the virus is treating us all one way. So the school has to treat us all the same way, ideally, in an ideal situation. But it's not ideal.
I understand that.
It's never going to be ideal.
Luckily, I have access for the most part to a laptop that has a microphone, a camera. So when there are times that we need to be turning those things on, I'm able to. So it's just sad to think about that. There are some people that just simply aren't fortunate enough to have the money to access things like that.
Right.
Oh, I also wanted to add that it's easier for some students to cheat.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so and that's a huge issue because
That's an issue for both professors and students.
I've noticed that a lot of the tests I've been having have been open note or open book, but for some professors they refuse to do things like that. So they have to deal with that unknown of like, did this student really earn this A or did they cheat to get it?
Right, and that's bad for professors and students. I mean, the education quality is definitely going down. There's another reason we're looking at for why schools should, maybe try to move towards getting students some sort of funding back. I think that generally what you're seeing is the same thing that you could talk about regarding online versus on-campus classes. Online classes, generally speaking, are a lot more easy to cheat on as well. It's always been that way, and we have tried many times to make certain measures, make it more difficult. Move your camera around the room to make sure there's no other notes on the table before you take the test. Mm-hmm. Things like that they just add barriers to the online or to the experience of learning in general.
Yeah, and I think that professors have become very discouraged with the fact that there's been more of a lack of student participation. Mm-hmm. It's just been a chance for students to slack off pretty much.
Well, it's camera on or camera off. That's the big thing. One of the things that we are going to discuss is what we want to talk about for advice. We'll be getting into that very shortly here.
Yep, we'll just be taking a quick break and we'll be coming back soon. This is the Knights Roundtable with Olivia, Gregory, and Nash McComsey.
Welcome back here at the Knights Roundtable. We are back with Olivia, Gregory, and myself, Nash McComsey. We will be talking now about our sort of experiences, just our personal takeaways. I mean, again, we mentioned at the top of the podcast, we're both commuter students. We've run the gambit, as it were, for now a couple semesters. Probably, we're not going to have to deal with this next semester, thank goodness. But we've definitely learned a lot. So, Olivia, tell me a little bit about what you've learned.
Okay, so I was never... Well, one big thing I learned is that you need to teach yourself self-discipline. If you do not teach yourself self-discipline or don't have any skills of self-discipline, you are not going to succeed in your classes. You're going to get bad grades. And luckily, I have been able to teach myself self-discipline over these past couple months, or past few months, actually. And one way that I taught myself self-discipline was actually Professor Miller's his advice of making a pretty much work schedule, and we type in like the frames of when we are going to work on each class's homework, and that actually helped a lot. I did follow it for a long time. It helped me stay on track, and I knew when to work on each class's assignment so I wasn't getting all scrambled and doing it together.
Right. Well, you could exemplify the problems that you see in online classes where you have to develop your own schedule. With these remote classes, you lose out on that schedule. So the best thing for you to do to get back on track is going to be to make your own. Set it up yourself. So it's not something that you're going to see all students do consistently. But it's definitely something that will help you in the long run.
It really does,
So if you're taking remote classes right now, set yourself a schedule. Write it down. You may not think you need it, but even the smallest bit of help, in this department specifically, you'll see a drastic improvement in your grades. I guarantee it. It's going to be it's very helpful for you to make sure that you are keeping all of your tasks in order, because a lot of students relied on, being able to go to class, do their work right after class, and then go home.
Yes, they were used to their professor telling them when to do this stuff, or having the ability to just go to the computer lab after class real quick and get that class's assignments out of the way. Now, with being at home, you have to completely rely on yourself to set aside time for each of your classes.
Speaking of online classes, I remember, I think we kind of have the same mindset regarding online classes.
Yeah,
I'm not a big
fan.
So. Myself, I wasn't a big fan before. This was a big transition for, myself to be able to do all of my classes, at least remotely. But going into it, I was definitely a little worried. I learned that remote classes, honestly, if you ask me, should be the future of online classes in general. I would love to be able to talk to all of my online teachers, at least with some designated time or something consistent, where you're actually meeting with them, being able to talk with them. I think that would be the future of online classes.
Yes.
If we could get there, that would be fantastic. But, here we are. We are stuck in these situations that we're in, we got to make the best of it.
I wanted to add that the professors at our college, they really, truly did a great job at being able to quickly come together with how to format this new type of learning. They honestly, every professor I've had taught it in a way that I was able to understand, and it was still fun for me. Like meeting on the online classes, a lot of the professors still made us engage with each other, ask questions, just talk to each other, and still somewhat get the same learning experience.
Right. I mean, we're trying to replicate it best we can, but there's only so much you can do when you're looking at your professor through a camera.
It's hard. It really is.
There's only so much that you can end up doing. One of the important things that I would say, regarding what you just said, is that for remote classes, there was no standard of learning. There was no general consensus on how a remote class is even to be run. Generally, most classes are either you're on campus or you're online or you're blended. Skype learning just has not been in the forefront of education yet. Now it's the only option. So what we need to do collectively, in my opinion, is develop a standard of what is to be done during an online class. Each school is handling it differently. I mean, they should be allowed to, of course. But each professor within the schools also handling it differently. So you have these varying experiences that make it difficult for students to get used to, also professors to enforce, because students are going to go at it a certain way. I mean, we were just talking a little bit about before the podcast started about how the camera's on-off question. You know what I mean? If we were to have students required to have their cameras on, if they have cameras at all, it's a big question. What are your thoughts on cameras on-off?
So my advice is to just ease your professor's mind just so that they know that you're paying attention and not just watching TV or sitting in your room with your friends. Just make sure that you're being engaged, you're asking questions, you turn your camera on, just because I know that professors are going out of their way to change this learning experience and do it to the best of their ability. And I think that it would just make them more satisfied to know that their students they actually care and they're actually participating.
Professors need something from us. They need something from us whenever we're in the classroom. They need something from us during these remote times. They need to make sure that we're actually engaging with the material. Whenever the camera's off, they have no idea what's going on.
They really don't.
So what other course of action would they possibly have to make sure that they're actually doing their job and educating students? There's none.
Exactly. The best thing they can do is say, participate, turn on your cameras, and there's only so much you can do.
And the only thing that they can do is take away your points, which no one likes. No one likes to have their points taken away because they don't have a camera. We don't want that. We don't want to, punish students for having a poor internet connection, another huge issue that separates a lot of our students. So it's a really difficult question, and it really hasn't been answered yet. I think that we've already been in this situation long enough, but if we have just a little bit more time to really suss out the details to provide a concrete, established way, this is you have your camera on for this, or you only have your camera on when you ask a question, or something specific that we could go across for all of campus, and this is how we learn remote at this school. That doesn't exist. And I don't know how quickly, obviously, they were expected to draw this up immediately. I really do feel for our professors.
Yeah, I know it's been hard for them. It has to. If it's been hard for us, I can't even imagine for them.
If you look at how a teacher has to prepare their semester, normally they have to draw it. They have to draw it up way before the semester starts, and they'll have all their assignments laid out. Obviously, a little subject to change, but this is an entirely new format that everyone is being expected to learn. Like that.
For example, the job shadow assignment that we would have done, we didn't get to do that, and he completely had to rearrange things to make sure that we're still somewhat getting that experience, but it still wasn't what he wanted for us.
No, and we're not getting the exact same experience no matter what. So I really do feel for our professors in this situation. I think that the most important thing is that there is a standard, that we have something that we can expect. That'll help students because they will know generally when to submit assignments, when to participate in class, all of these important things that we kind of take for granted in our on-campus classes. I think that it's going to be important for for us to establish something to ease the mind of professors and students at the same time.
Yes, and I just wanted to add my last piece of advice. That is, once we do get back on campus, wash your hands, wear a mask, don't be going out to parties and just exposing yourself to risks, because there are people that are going to be around you that could be at a higher risk than you are, and you just want to respect people. Like, it's really all about respect at this point.
The sooner we start taking this seriously, the sooner we'll be back to on-campus classes.
And that's what we all want.
That's
we don't
what we
don't
all
want to
want.
have to sit in our rooms
Right,
online all day.
We've definitely learned a lot from this whole experience,
Yes.
but we, at the end of the day, just want to go back to a little bit of normalcy, as it were.
So is there any last piece of advice that you want to add?
I think that about covers it for me. Olivia?
I think I'm good. Well, this was the Knights Roundtable with Olivia Gregory and Nash McComsey. Everyone have a great day.
Sayonara, folks.
Hi, this is Olivia Gregory with Nash McComsey, and you are listening to the Knights Roundtable.
This is Nash McComsey with the Knights Roundtable here with Olivia Gregory.